Good evening. It is 5:58 p.m. It's Thursday, May 13th. I hereby open, I think, should we open first the Board of Public Works to get that business taken out? Because I think we have to open those meetings separately, right?
They could actually be open at the same time because you have a quorum of both bodies.
Okay.
So
I'm
the
going to
sequence
open
is
the.
yours.
All right. So I'm going to open the Board of Selectmen, Town of Rutland, and Board of Selectmen, Board of Public Works. And we're here tonight. Mr. Buckley had requested this meeting. At this point, I'm just going to have to entertain a motion for both boards to waive the reading of the remote Zoom meeting instructions.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion about that motion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Clark?
Aye.
Nichols?
Nichols, aye.
Benoit?
Benoit, aye.
Whiteman?
Whiteman, aye.
And Ricity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. The only item of agenda, or one of two, we have Mr. Buckley. I believe he's here to discuss. He requested this as an emergency meeting. Just to recap, it's my understanding, Joe, the water filtration plant, the water treatment plant, we had hired someone for additional capacity at that facility. That person has decided to accept the job somewhere else. That puts us in kind of a predicament where we're going to have to staff that facility. So tonight you're requesting transfer of funding to be able to temporarily staff that facility while you put out to bid the services for that facility. Is that correct?
Something similar.
Okay, go ahead.
So first off, let me thank everybody for coming last minute. And I think it'd be best if we had back and forth. If anyone wanted to ask me direct questions, I'm glad too. Plainly, Rutland has one reservoir. We have no out-of-town water supply connections. If we don't pump water out of our reservoir and treat it, we can't supply water. Our permit requires us to operate our facility 7 days a week. It's not realistic to have our one remaining operator running the facility 7 days a week. Just to recap, we had at one point basically three operators. One was part-time, but one has sadly passed away, and a second had taken a job in another town. At that time, we brought in Weston Sampson Services after contacting several engineering service companies who do this kind of work to try and get someone in to run the plant in an emergency capacity. We were able to get Weston, and we were able to hire someone. So we got that person up to speed and augmented that with Weston Sampson, but that person has since left. So we now have just the one chief operator left. We have plenty of funding for people. We've advertised for new staff, but we currently don't have them. So as similar to what you described, our current plan is to bring Weston Sampson in with hired contract operators to help run the plant, along with our remaining operator, the chief operator, till probably July 1. And then we're hoping to put a bid out on the street to run the plant on an emergency basis. And then at the same time, hopefully hire someone and start to rebuild the water staff. I'm reluctant at this point to completely put the entire process out for bid because frankly, it's not as cost effective as running the water filtration system, water filtration plant with your own staff. If we go putting it completely out, I think we'd be doing some folks here a disservice because it would drive rates up. In addition to putting it out for bid, we're going to have to do some house cleaning, for lack of a better description. If you put it out to bid to have someone come in and run the plant, they can't just walk in and run it at this time because we don't have good standard operating procedures detailed. We don't have, some of our instrumentation is in need of some updates. I don't think that's going to be a huge cost, but we should be doing anyways, and B, will make it easier to get someone in to run the facility on in an emergency capacity. Having said that, Does anyone have any questions so far?
I guess my question, Joe, if I can,
Sure.
is if with that individual leaving, we still have that budgeted salary line item, how much in excess is it going to cost us to both have Weston and Sampson come in to run the plant and then have to go out to bid while we search for someone? Because there's going to be some money that's there.
Let me just try and understand your question. You're wondering if I can, you're suggesting we pay for,
No,
Hiring-
I'm suggesting the staff that's leaving,
yep,
his line item is already budgeted.
yes.
And so there's going to be money that can go towards this. How
Oh,
much
sure.
in excess of that? How much in excess of that would you pay?
Oh, between 5 and 10,000.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
We got some basic estimates. It's around $100 an hour to have Weston and Sampson, or as much as $140 an hour on a weekend to have them here. I did, contact some other vendors. I talked to RH White or Whitewater. They have a division that does that. And I talked to someone at Methuen Construction, and both of them provide temporary operators of this nature, and that rate is not excessive.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm sorry, I can't see you with your hands
Oh,
raised.
yeah, I do.
Go ahead. Yep.
Through the chair. I have a couple of questions. As far as the funding, Joe, where is the funding coming, and is that something that, is it a transfer and something that the finance committee needs to look at and approve?
Excellent question. Mr. City, do you mind if I answer him directly?
Go right ahead.
Okay. We had a series of massive water main breaks on our 12-inch main on Miles Road. And last fall, this board put some reserves in place in case we had another failure. So we would have the money on hand to make emergency repairs and and adjust accordingly. There is a significant balance left in those reserve funds. We'd be looking to use that, Mr. Nichols.
Okay, and then just one other question is, as far as backup during these type of situations, have we ever thought of outreaching to other towns with operators, having some kind of regional agreement to back up other towns, just like, as we have with our fire chief, letting them go and act, or come to some kind of agreement, so in an emergency, we have some kind of a backup with a qualified person that might be able to help us in a situation.
In a perfect world, I would agree with you completely. What's happened though in the Commonwealth, those positions are, people with those qualifications are rare and hard to come by. By means of example, the person who just left Rutland is filling a vacancy that particular town has been trying to fill for a year. When I went to try and get someone with the qualifications into Rutland to run our plant, Weston Sampson had one. RH White, by means of example, had 150 or so operators statewide. They have no one. That particular qualification is hard to come by. So yes, I agree that would be a good way to go, but the problem is the people with the qualifications simply aren't there. What we'll probably end up doing is hiring some folks with lesser qualifications than we would need to run the plant, and then help them get the licenses over time so we can rebuild our staff that way. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Nichols.
It does. Just one other follow-up. I know I
Sure.
talked briefly to Ron about RCAP Solutions or Waterworks, and I know a lot of times they offer accredited courses free of charge. So I'd like to make sure that we take advantage of any opportunities that staff can take courses. As I said, they're free, and work towards getting those accreditations.
I agree. Right now, we just got to get them on board.
Mitch, it's Leah, if I may.
You may, yes.
Thank you. I think the questions that you and Lyndon asked are really important. I was also curious why it seems like we've been having a tough time staffing or maintaining staff in the water treatment plant. Is it a salary thing? Is it an hours thing? Is it strictly the accreditations that are required? Is it kind of a combination of everything? I think we need to be mindful of what's causing the turnover there, kind of all of a sudden. I know we've had the unfortunate loss of one of the part-time individuals, but other than that, what can we as a town, or what should we as a town be looking at to try to maintain staff there specifically, since that's what we're talking about tonight, I guess.
I think it's, Joe, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding that to Leah's question, it sounds like the individual might have taken a position a lot closer for him from a commute standpoint. Is that
Yes,
fair? Yeah.
it's a fair question. I'm going to do my best to answer Leah's questions. The person who left got roughly the same pay, limited or no weekend hours at all, and a better commute.
If through the chair, if I can comment as well.
Yes.
I sit in a lot of meetings regarding this. There is a really drastic shortage of operators across the state, and as well as in other states. And there's really been a lot of push to try to get people involved, but they're just not getting the interest in these positions. Not a lot with water, but especially with sewer treatment plants. They're just not getting people that are getting educated and have an interest in operating. So there's a shortage across this state in these areas. So
It sounds like for all you young people watching, this is probably a good field for somebody to get into at this point. You know, I might even switch directions. What do you think? But no, it sounds like this is a real problem. You know, and that's unfortunate.
I'd like, do you mind if I just make a couple quick comments?
Sure, Joe.
I think for a long time, the Rutland department was relatively stable. The real shortages for the two people who have left has left us struggling to recover.
Understood. So what is it that you're looking for the board? Is it a transfer you're looking for tonight? What do you need from us?
That came as a suggestion from the town accountant. He wanted to make sure that I at least talked to the board to because we had used some reserve money to fund contract operators already. And it looks like we're going to need more. So the town accountant had asked that I make sure that I review that with the Board of Public Works. But additionally, it's critical that everybody know if we don't deal with this, we can't provide safe drinking water. And we have no way of buying it from outside of town. So that's the real reason I had to call this an emergency. I hope you understand.
I do, and thank you. And I would like to recognize, I know last year, this is certainly a tight budget year. You had worked to make sure that those reserves were available in the case of emergencies, particularly with water break. But because of your foresight, I feel like we're in a lot better position with this situation than we otherwise would be. So thank you for that. Certainly appreciate it. Does anybody else from the board have any questions for Mr. Buckley?
Mitch, this is Carol. I do. You mentioned outdated or no SOPs in some instances and instruments that need updates. And I'm wondering what your correlation was to what you need. Is this part of what you need? Is this a time? Do you need time? What do you need for that?
It's an excellent question. And do you mind if I call you Carol? Congratulations. I made phone calls as recently as today. When I had a talk with the chief operator and I monitored the situation, when we brought an operator in from Weston and Sampson, it took them a week or so to get acclimated to our facility so that they could operate it competently. And my concern was I wanted to hit it on a couple different fronts. So obviously I want to hire somebody, but if I can't get someone, I have to put it out to bid. And my concern was if I didn't have good documentation, somebody coming in couldn't run the plant. It would take the learning curve would be too high. So we had an article we passed 2 years ago to do some evaluation of plant operations for, I want to say it was associated with algae because we had complaints in town about smelly water basically. And that included some monies for plant evaluation. So we haven't spent them yet. So, and we already have a signed contract. So I basically put the consulting engineer on that task so that I could have that in my hand. So I could put it out for hopefully before July 1. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I just wondered if there was any not having them was causing an issue. That's all I was
It does
wondering.
cause an issue because frankly, they come in off the street and the learning curve on operating the facility, even, it's not a super challenge, but there's these little nuances. Unless you get it well documented, I don't think we'd be able to do it safely. How's that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board for Director Buckley?
One further comment, Mitch, if I can.
Yep.
I'd like us to kind of look at the possibility of maybe even doing internships. There's a lot of environmental majors that might have an interest, and we might be able to spark some interest in somebody. And who knows, maybe stay with us, but would also give some support. So if we can maybe look in one of those programs, it might be beneficial.
I can
That's a
look
great, that's a great suggestion. And Joe, I could send you some information on that's a lot of times the Workforce Investment Board, both North Central and on Worcester, I think you probably worked before over there.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Program. Okay, I can connect it to the Workforce Board and youth.
It's getting worse, Mitch. Sorry. He just said
I just couldn't.
He can get you some connections, Joe. We'll get you information.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
I couldn't hear it. I feel bad. I'm sorry.
I'll send you an email, Joe. We'll take care of it.
Very good.
All right. Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, I don't think we need a motion, Joe. So
okay.
Everyone's apprised. Just keep us apprised as we move forward.
No, and we are still actively looking at additional sources. We did apply for a grant to try and get some funds in place to do an out-of-town connection to Holden. I don't want to I want to reinforce how important it is to come up with either a backup source or an out-of-town connection for emergencies going forward. That's something in the long term we definitely have to develop.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
At this point, I'll entertain a motion for the Board of Public Works only to close.
So moved.
Nichols, second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Clark?
Aye.
Nichols?
Nichols, aye.
Whiteman?
Whiteman, aye.
Benoit?
Benoit, aye.
And Ricidi, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Director Buckley. Okay, so the only other item on the agenda for tonight, and I put this on as an option for the board to discuss, was our annual reorg. Last year, we did not reorg until after town meeting. Obviously, these are different circumstances. I wanted to give the board the option, if they wanted to tackle it tonight, we could do that. We could put it on the agenda for our regular meeting on Monday, which will be in person. If you feel this warrants more of an in-person discussion or more viewership. But I'm going to leave the discretion to the board.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend any changes until after the town meeting with so many things going on.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, for discussion. And I want to make this brief. I want to make clear that tradition in town has always dictated that the chairmanship revolve among members. So we've only had one incident in the history of town in recent history where we've had someone serve 2 years in a row. So it is every intent that I have to allow another member, or I wish to have another member as chair to carry on that tradition. I think it's important. And I think since we have a new member, we all have to understand that the chairmanship is more about scheduling, and each one of us is equal in that capacity. So whatever the decision that the board has to move it to after town meeting, or whatever we want to do, it is my full intent, come my time, to pass the torch. Is that understood with everyone?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from the board on the motion or the second? All right, hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. I'm sorry, Clark?
Clark, aye.
Nichols?
Nichols, aye.
Whitman,
Waitman, aye.
and Benoit,
Benoit, aye.
and Resity, a very reserved aye. It's been a long year for all of us. Certainly appreciate the work that everybody's put in. And again, we can revisit this anytime if the board so chooses. And if not, we'll do it right immediately following town meeting. All right.
Motion
That
to
being
adjourn.
said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you, Skip. You beat me to it.
Second, Nichols? Well,
Motion and
Joe,
a second.
I think Joe might have a question, Mitch.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for discussion. Joe, do you have a question?
This should be very simple. Again, it's really nice out, so I don't want to hold anybody up. But I strongly suggest that based on the concerns regarding the water system, we maybe want to regroup late June. Is that possible? Just so we can
Of
review
course.
all this stuff. It's a very sensitive issue, and we're kind of in a stuck place, and I'd feel better if we just possibly review this late June.
Yeah, whatever you need, Director Buck, we're good. So that's
All right, so I'll talk to you or Ron's office and schedule another meeting.
okay. Thank you. All
Thank
right,
you.
we have a motion.
Thanks,
to adjourn,
everybody. Sorry.
And we'll have a roll call vote on that motion to adjourn. Clark,
Clock eye.
Nichols,
Nichols, aye?
Whitman,
Waitman, aye.
Benoit,
Benoit, aye.
and Resity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you all and have a good evening.